Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. This is going to be a pick of stuff I got at the outdoor flea market this past Mother's Day of 2021. And it's not going to be a very long episode. I did get some pretty good deals. I'm going to start out with one of the larger items that's outside. We're going to hit that real quick, take a quick look at that. And then that's going to need some repairs, so I'm going to have a separate episode where I work on that thing and see if I can get it running. So let's go out and take a look at that. So here's the one of the larger items that I picked at this particular flea market, and I did get one other item that's actually not even here at the house anymore because I ended up even needing to use it at another location, and it's still sitting there. And that was a appliance hand truck. And the funny thing about that is that I had literally planned on having to move a refrigerator that day. And the plan was that I was going to stop after the flea market. I was going to stop at Home Depot's rental center and rent one of those appliance hand trucks. And if you've never seen one of those appliance hand trucks for moving refrigerators, they have a very straight back to them, as opposed to like a hand truck that has curved handles that curve back or sweep back. They're very rigid and strong, and they also have belts on pulleys that run almost like tracks on a tank and allow you to drag something heavy up or down stairs. As luck would have it, there was a guy there who had one. He wanted $35 for it, very reasonable price. I was like, I'm going to rent one. I'm going to pay like $25 to rent it, but then at least it goes away. The problem with owning one is when you're not using it, you need to have a place to store it. And, I've got too much stuff as it is. But I went back later on and beat the guy up and got him down to $25 on the thing. So at $25, I was like, it's worth it. I don't have to stop, rent it. And more importantly, the nearest rental Home Depot to me is about 30 minutes drive. So after I got done using the thing, I was going to have to drive back to that Home Depot just to drop this thing off. So, and that was for a 4-hour rental. By owning it for $25, I don't have to pay the rental fee. I don't have to worry about returning it in time. And I'll have it for future use. So whatever. But this was the thing that another item that it's like, I couldn't pass it up. The guy was firm at $20 on this, and I actually walked away and walked around a little bit, came back later, it was still there, came back even later when I was getting ready to leave, it was still there, and I was still offering the $15 that he didn't want to take, and he was still firm at $20. And then finally, when I said, well, I'm getting ready to leave, we settled on $18. So, those of you who follow my channel know that just a couple of weeks before this one, at the tractor flea market, I picked up not one, but two of these. One was a Mantis, and the other was a Troy-Bilt. And I have since fixed those up and used those. They both seem to be working okay. But then this one intrigued me because it's got the Honda 4-stroke engine on it. So that's what I think is kind of cool about it. Somebody's using what looks like an antifreeze bottle cap from an antifreeze jug as a makeshift gas cap, so they lost the gas cap. It's been sitting outside, as evident by the chrome all flaking off the handle, so it's not physically in as nice condition as the 2-stroke one that I got, but the 2-stroke one has some other weird manufacturer's engine on it, and I think this might actually end up being a better one in the end. We'll find out, so stay tuned for an episode on that coming up. So, first guy I ran into is a guy I've bought from before. He usually brings in all kinds of stuff, and his prices are usually pretty reasonable. Matter of fact, he usually has a crowd first thing in the morning of guys picking through his junk. And I spotted one of these, and then dug a little deeper in the same bin and found another one. And these are top links, adjustable top links for a 3-point hitch. So the way they work is you can put a wrench on these two flats right here and turn this middle part while these two are anchored on the implement. And when you turn this will lengthen or shorten. So I kind of figured I was going to get these really cheap, and I did. I ended up getting a pair of these for $10, so I only paid $5 a piece for these. They're kind of long, but I might have a use for them. And the one that I have right now is a Tractor Supply one. It's a cheap one I bought at Tractor Supply Company. And last time I was adjusting that, when I was working on the bush hog, I noticed that it was pretty seized up on one end and being a real pain. So I figured, what the heck, I'd snag these. Later on, I came back to his table and picked out a few things. And I got these 3 items right here. Here we go. These 3 items right here. I got these for $10. This I saw a couple weeks ago when I was there, and nobody had bought it still. I thought it was kind of neat then, but I just, didn't end up buying it. And since it was still there, I knew I was going to get it really cheap, so I piled it in with this stuff. So let's talk about this thing first, because it's really something different. It's marked Cummins Engine Company, Columbus, Indiana. There's a part number on here of 217588. So what this is this is a, I think it's a starter solenoid. It's definitely a solenoid for a high current electric motor. The thing that's kind of interesting about it is I think it's electrical like a regular solenoid. So I think you can put voltage to these 2 terminals here, and it'll close like a regular solenoid. It'll close the contacts to make these 2 connections shorted to each other. But then it also has this mechanical arm, so you can manually activate it. And it's got an ingenious snap switch design built into it to make sure that when you're not going to just bring this in slowly and have it arcing on the contacts. You can only bring it over so far, and then it's going to snap those contacts in fast and snap them out quick, like it should. So just don't know why would you need the ability to do this if you've got the electrical. So is it like if your electrical system has gone dead for some reason, you can manually override it? And is it a starter, or is it something else? I don't think it's for like a winch, because it's only got one direction. It's not set up to change polarity, which would be to reverse the DC motor and make the winch cable go in and out. It's painted red. Could that mean that it's off of an old fire engine? And what's interesting is underneath the red paint that's peeling off, I could see it looks like it's all brass. So I imagine this was probably pretty pricey back in its day. All right, so I looked up that part number, and apparently this device is made by a company called Metron. And this particular one looks like it was used on what Cummins called a fire pump engine. And from the pictures that I looked at, it looks like this isn't something that would have been on a fire truck. It almost looks like something that might have been, at a building. And I'm thinking maybe it was like something that sat outside of a building, and then during a fire, it would be started up to pump water through the sprinkler systems. That's just kind of a guess. And then I guess the idea would be, the reason why you would want the ability to manually start it is if for some reason you weren't able to get the electrical to start, you could override it and just crank the starter. And being a diesel, as long as it had fuel going to it, it didn't need any other ignition. So the part number that this is supposedly the same part in Metron has a -24 after it. I'm wondering whether or not that means that it's a 24-volt system. I know in the military, when I was in the military, we had 24-volt systems in some of the tracked vehicles. So kind of an interesting novelty. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. Initially, my thought was occasionally when I'm working on something, if I've got a bad solenoid, I could just sub out the solenoid with this temporarily. But I mean, honestly, I don't know how often I would find myself wanting to do that. think maybe this might be better off just going to eBay. He also had several really, the boxes were really in poor condition and looks like filthy. But what was in these boxes are brand new old stock voltage regulators. So I didn't want to take all of them because a lot of them were really kind of gross. This one was a little bit cleaner on the inside, and I figured just for the heck of it, since I was going to get it so cheap, I'd take a chance. So here's a wiring diagram for it. And again, if this is 24 volt, it's not going to do me any good. But I was thinking when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, you know, it's kind of funny. This looks a lot like a voltage regulator that I think is on my my Ford 5000 tractor that I recently acquired. And I think that there is a problem with that generator or voltage regulator. So I figured, what the heck, take a chance. Worst case scenario is I could probably put this online. Although who knows, maybe it's too old. There is a part number. This is by a company called Leece Neville, Leece, Neville, Neville. So I don't know if there's any specs. I don't know if there's it feels like just maybe some bushings or something. Oh, these are the rubber. I bet you these are the rubber isolation grommets that go in these slots right here. Alright, so yeah, well, I did look this up, and I did find somebody selling one on eBay, new open box. They're asking $45 for it, but there haven't been any that previously sold, so I don't know how much this is going to be worth if I can't end up using it. The good news is they're listing it as a 14 volt regulator, so the voltage is right. I just hope it's not one of those negative ground systems, positive ground systems or something weird. The other interesting thing about this was that quite a while back I had gotten a new old stock Ford air filter housing from this same guy, and he told me that we were talking about it. I was saying how I never did identify what that went to. It sure looked like a tractor one, but he said that he believes, he's pretty sure this all came out of the same estate. And I noticed that a lot of these Leece Neville voltage regulators are being called Ford voltage regulators. So wouldn't that be a hoot if I got lucky and this actually did fit my Ford tractor? And even if it doesn't fit my Ford tractor, if I can identify, you know, what Ford it went into, it could also be actually for an old Ford truck, right? Well, anyways, I'm not into it for a ton of money, which is always a good place to be. And so, like I said, I got these 3 items for $10, and this was the last item. I went through his box of taps and drills and stuff. A lot of used Morse taper, high-speed steel drills, and then I happened upon this, and I was like, oh, that's brand new. That's nice and sharp, never been used. It's got a Morse taper shank on it. So it's a 3/8 by, that's a 3/8 by 1 1/4 by, that's a Greenfield tap and die. High speed steel USA. So the max diameter here must be 1 1/4, and this must be 3/8 here. And then that looks like probably a Morse taper 2, if I had to guess. But that might come in handy. So that's a countersinking, or, you know, almost like a chamfering bit. Well, I told you guys this was going to be a quick one. Sure enough, that's everything that I picked that day. So I'm just going to add on this couple of items I picked up at the used tool store of all places. I guess he did a clean out and happened upon this tailstock for a lathe, and he wasn't able to identify it, so he put $19.50 on it. And then the funny thing is, after I bought it, he told me that he thinks this writing on here is from the original owner of the store that he bought it from. So this is something that it's been kicking around in his inventory that when he bought the store, the inventory that was there included this, came with it. And he never got around to putting it out. It was buried in some far corner or something. I don't know. He actually moved since he bought the store, so who knows how long he's had this in his possession. So he threw it out there with the same price it was on there, and I snagged it, which, you know, is either nuts or not. I mean, if it was like, if I could positively identify it as a South Bend, it'd be like, oh, well, this would be easy money, you know. It's small enough that I could probably ship it without too much hassle. It does have the base here is to fit a V-way, so I know it's not like an Atlas or something horrible. There we go. And of course you get your offset. So I don't know, does anybody recognize that? It's got an interesting shaped little locking handle. So if I can end up finding out who made this and advertise it correctly, I could probably easily double or triple my money. But yeah, I don't see any markings or casting numbers or anything that's going to tell me the tale. I guess I could, oh wait, there is a casting number right there. Yeah, it looks like it just says 51. It might be 51R1? Yeah, very hard to tell. No, I don't think I'm going to figure it out that way. Well, I was poking around on the sold listings on eBay, and I came across one for a South Bend Heavy 10 lathe that's a perfect match for this, and it sold for $235. So what's interesting is that when I look up Heavy 10 tailstocks, the majority of them, the handle up here looks different. But this one that I found right here, this is a perfect match. You can see the shape of the handle. It's the same shape right here on this one. So photographs showing the bottom plate and what it looks like. The location of these oilers, everything is a dead-on match. That one's in much better condition. The thing that's interesting about it is it specifies that it's for an early Heavy 10 with a 7-inch wide bed. So I'm wondering if that's a harder to find one. Well, that's enough on that. And then the only other item I bought at the tool store that day, well, before I leave the subject of this tailstock, I just wanted to say that I did a little bit of looking, and I now do not believe that this is for a Heavy 10 at all. I don't know a lot about South Bend lathes, but I think that eBay seller is wrong in his description that it's for an early Heavy 10, unless his is wider than mine. Which actually I think it is, because I think in listing he said it fits a 7-inch wide bed, right? So if I look at this, I mean from the top of the V groove, I mean the question is where does the, yeah, so we got a flat on one side and a V on the other. So I would say the overall width of the bed is probably 5 inches max. Unless there's another V back here that the carriage rides on. The center line distance from the spindle to the top of the V is about 5 inches, which would make it a 10-inch swing. Yes, I don't know. That's going to be harder to identify than I thought. Because I saw this plastic kitty litter bucket sitting there with all these cotter pins in it, and I said, notice it said $2. He's got a 2 dash upside down there. So I said, so this whole pail's $2? He said, yep. I said, all right, that was a no-brainer. So there's a little bit of other miscellaneous hardware strewn in here. But for the most part, it's just a whole load of cotter pins. Unfortunately, the majority of them are all the same size, and then there's these weird ones. How thick these are. They're very thick and short, which is kind of unusual. At least I thought they seemed kind of unusual. I don't know what the heck you use those on. There's also some fine thread fasteners in here. Oh, look at that. Some bonus hose clamps. Those are always handy. Those are like the good size for fuel lines. So you'd agree that's a good one for $2. Alright, so should be having another Flea Market Finds episode coming along soon. Gonna have some more machinist tools coming up on the next one. So until then, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button. And if you're not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing. Take care.